Now, Professor of Political Science and Deputy Dean of Research at the University of the Western Cape, Bheki Mngomezulu joins us now via Zoom. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program. So it looks as if this road to Nasrec is getting trickier and trickier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ndoro, for having me, and good evening to your viewers. Yes, indeed, and this is bound to happen. The moment the moment Kgalema Motlanthe announced those who are contesting the top 6 position, then of course it was as if the race has begun. And then, of course, people are going to start shifting positions and then re-strategizing and all of that. So what we have heard, what we have just indicated at the beginning of this talk is that basically what politicians are doing is that they are looking at the realities on the ground, and then they are trying to check who is in my corner, so that if you attack the enemy, you know exactly that we have people you can count on. So this is bound to happen, and we'll hear more of these things happening until December 16, which is when the ANC conference is supposed to start in Nasrec.
Help us understand this stance that some of these provincial leaders are taking, that they will withdraw their support for Paul Mashatile. Aren't these decisions made at branch level, and that the province communicates what the people on the ground are saying? They can't just wake up one morning and say, actually, we withdraw that support, can they?
Ordinarily, Mr. Ndoro, you are absolutely right. In principle, you are right that branches are supposed to be having a louder voice. In fact, they are supposed to be having the loudest voice and the final voice. But then we've seen this happening even before the official announcements were made, where provinces were pronouncing who their preferred candidates were. But in this case, I think it's slightly different, because if you heard Mr. Duma, what he was saying is that already there are 5 regions that are saying that they are going to reassess their support for Paul Mashatile as the deputy president. As to how then this is going to pan out, it's everybody's guess. Because what is going to happen in Nasrec is that when people go there as delegates, they will be having a mandate coming from the branches, and then the PECs are just one part of the group that will be voting at Nasrec. So which means that the pronouncement by the PEC is not the final word, but then if they pronounce after having heard from the branches, then of course that word carries more weight. So in this case, if you have 5 regions saying that they are going to reassess their support for Paul Mashatile on the grounds that Gauteng is not coming to the party, that is a cause for concern for Paul Mashatile. And another issue, of course, that I've heard is that they are saying that Paul Mashatile made a mistake when he addressed the media and indicated that he would consider a nomination if someone were to nominate him from the floor for the presidency position. So then they're asking themselves the question, is this the right person to support? And that is why they are saying they are going to reassess. They've not concluded yet, but they are saying they are going to reassess their support for Paul Mashatile, which I think is a valid point, given the fact that KwaZulu-Natal, in fact, in my view, they were frank when they announced their preferred candidates, because they covered the entire country. They were not focused on KwaZulu-Natal only. They had Dr. Zweli Mkhize for the presidency, and then they had Paul Mashatile for the deputy presidency. They also had Stanley Mathabata in Limpopo. They had Phumulo Maswale from the Eastern Cape. They had Mngomezulu Mokonyan. So I think what they did is what other provinces were supposed to do. I think the pronouncement by Duma is out of frustration. We've done what we're supposed to do. How come that our comrades are not doing the same thing? That is where the frustration comes from.
All right, so unpack this for us. It's almost as if they're saying that if you want Mashatile, then you must take Zweli Mkhize. If Zweli Mkhize doesn't win, then Paul Mashatile must go as well. Is that the message that's being sent out?
Not necessarily, because remember that these candidates will not be voted simultaneously. There will be a vote for the presidency. They will conclude on that. There will be a vote for the deputy presidency, and so on and so forth. So what KZN is saying is that we had discussions with the Gauteng and other provinces, and we reach consensus that we are going to field a candidate from KZN, in this case, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, for the presidency. So which means then that if Gauteng then supports KZN for the presidency, then KwaZulu-Natal is going to support Gauteng for Paul Mashatile to take the deputy presidency. It doesn't necessarily mean that if KwaZulu-Natal does not support Gauteng in electing Paul Mashatile, then Paul Mashatile will automatically lose. It will also depend how other provinces will vote on the day, and maybe how other branches from KwaZulu-Natal will vote on the day. So it's not cast in stone that the moment Dr. Zweli Mkhize doesn't make it, therefore then Paul Mashatile doesn't make it. Which is a similar point with Oscar Mabuyane. Most people have been saying that they are shocked to see Oscar Mabuyane coming third for the deputy presidency position, because they were saying that because he's seen to be in line with the president, then of course if the president gets to 2037, and then of course they would have expected him to lead the pack for the deputy president. But the opposite happened, because Paul Mashatile led that pack for the deputy presidency. But to answer our question directly, I don't think that KZN is saying that if Dr. Zweli Mkhize doesn't make it, then Paul Mashatile should not make it too. All they are saying is, if Gauteng does not support the KZN in the case of Dr. Zweli Mkhize, they are not going to support Paul Mashatile, but then they are not going to dictate to other provinces and other delegates as to how they should vote when it comes to the deputy presidency.
Why Gauteng?
It's because in this case, you have the president and you have the deputy president. And then they are saying that if we as KZN, we are fielding the president, and you as Gauteng, you are fielding the deputy president, let us square up. And
Okay.
it's in fact...
So spread the power around the provinces.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Because they are trying to avoid what happened in 2017. You recall that in 2017, where Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma didn't make it, and then of course we also had Senzo Mchunu who didn't make it. So basically there was no one in the top six. And then they did their homework, and then they said, for us to get the top six, let us be strategic. Let us not field 6 candidates to run for the 6 positions coming from KZN. We have our own candidate. Let other provinces have their candidates, but let us lobby support from the other provinces that they support us for our candidate, in this case, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, and then we're going to return the favor and support them for the deputy president. That is basically all that is there. Otherwise, people are going to read a lot, and then I don't think it's warranted. For me, the argument that KZN is making, in fact, makes sense to me. Not just because I come from KZN, but because it makes sense politically.
Why is it so important? I mean, if this party is one party and it's a unified party, it shouldn't matter where the candidates come from, which province or which tribe.
In theory, you are right, Mr. Ndoro. That is how it's supposed to happen. But in practice, it doesn't work like that. Each province would want to have at least one person representing them in the higher structures of the organization. If not in the top 6, at least in the decision-making bodies of the organization, including the NEC, that is the National Executive Committee, and the NWC, or the National Working Committee. So I think it's only fair that you would have this power spread throughout the country, because the elections that are going to happen at Nasrec from the 16th to the 20th of December are not a provincial election. They are national elections. So therefore, it means that you would expect that the top 6 should be coming from different provinces. I think that is the argument that people are putting forth. Not necessarily to say that if you don't get anything, therefore you're out.
But the unity then...
Yes, Mr. Ndoro?
The unity then, is it enhanced by spreading the love, or could it perpetuate some of the issues of the past? I mean, there were words used in the past like the Cosa Nostra.
Mr. Ndoro, don't be deceived by politicians talking about unity. There is no unity here. They will keep talking about unity. Unity doesn't exist. Just like you heard about the new dawn. The new dawn is yet to come. We have not seen the new dawn. So don't be deceived by politicians. What they say and what they do are usually 2 different things. That is why we've heard about the rebuilding of the party, a unity in the party, changing things for the better. Are we better off now, or are we worse off? you and I know exactly what the answer is to that question. So all I'm saying is that politicians will say one thing and do the other.
Yeah.
But then in this case, we're just looking at it holistically to see as to how come that KZN has reached this conclusion or has made this threat that if Gauteng doesn't support KZN, KZN is also not going to support Gauteng. But then the point is, politicians are politicians.
All right, we're running out of time, but perhaps the final question. Are we already starting to see clear slates for Nazareth?
There will be slates, but those slates cannot be confirmed until on the day of the conference. Because remember, Mr. Ndoro, that on the day of the conference, delegates will still be afforded an opportunity to raise somebody's name from the floor, which means it might change the whole thing. But of course, right now, we'll start seeing people realigning themselves, re-strategizing with the hope that whatever they are coming up with will win on the day. There is no guarantee at the moment, but yes, indeed, we are going to find people coming up with some slates saying that if this person wins, everybody behind that person is also going to win. If this one loses, everybody behind that person is going to lose. But then the problem is that on the day of the conference, anything can still happen. You know, delegates sometimes don't take a cue from their branches. They go there with a particular mandate. Once they're at the conference, they do something totally different. As to why they do that, you and I don't know. Politicians do.
All right, it's going to be a long 3 weeks until that conference, and I suspect lots going to happen in between. Prof, always good talking to you. Thanks so much indeed for joining us.